Hey guys, and welcome back to the Gerbil Vine. Thank you all so much for clicking on this video, for supporting our channel, and for helping the gerbils and I spread around good care here on YouTube. Today's video topic is a prominent issue in the world of gerbil owning, and certainly one of my biggest fears as a gerbil owner, and that is declanning. Declanning is the official term for when a clan splits apart. In this case, we are referring to a gerbil clan. So in this case, the gerbils fight so hard, sometimes even until the death, and they need to be separated. Sometimes we never really know what caused the gerbils to fight and split apart, but other times there are obvious things that you can do to help reduce the risk, and we're going to go over some of those things and other topics here today. If you haven't already, please hit that like and subscribe button so that you never miss our uploads. So there are several reasons why gerbil clans can split apart. Like many other groups or clans that live together, gerbils have a hierarchy. Gerbil groups usually have a bigger or more dominant gerbil known as the alpha. It can be difficult to spot with your gerbils which one is in fact the alpha. It took me many hours and months of watching them to truly figure out their hierarchy and their dynamic in their group. For example, if my submissive gerbil Jerry was running in his wheel and the dominant gerbil Dusk decided that he wanted to run in the wheel, he would simply hop in and Jerry, being submissive, would hop out no problem. So watching the confident actions of Dusk led me to believe that he is in fact my alpha gerbil and that my sweet little Jerry is in fact my submissive gerbil. What I believe helps in regard to having a stabilized clan is to have a gerbil that has each of those qualities. Whether you have a pair of dominant male gerbils or a group of dominant female gerbils, it doesn't really matter the sex of the gerbil. Having two alphas in your tank at the same time is not going to be a good idea. Once your gerbils do split apart, there really is no guarantee that they can successfully be put back together. The chance is not zero that this can happen, but it's extremely unlikely, particularly if your gerbils have already drawn blood from their fight. It really does lower the risk of them being able to successfully live together again in the future. Unfortunately, it is a big risk in owning gerbils, so preventing a declan isn't as overwhelming as it may seem. Sometimes it's as simple as having a large space where both gerbils can roam freely. Other times it's a bit more complicated, such as making sure that your gerbils have two ways in and out of every single hidey house or entrance or tunnel. A more dominant gerbil can actually block your submissive gerbil from entering or from leaving a certain area, which will 100% lead to a fight or at least a squabble. With gerbils, it really is best to cover all of your bases. Always make sure there are multiple entrances and exits, and that tunnels, bendy bridges, hidey houses, and everything else is wide enough that if a gerbil is coming from one direction in it and it decides that it doesn't want to continue going forward, it's able to turn around and go back the way it came. This is great if another gerbil is there and it's blocking or it's proving to be a challenge for the gerbil to pass, so that your gerbil can just make the decision to avoid confrontation and just exit out of wherever it is. Another way to avoid potential problems in your gerbil clan would be to provide enough resources so that the gerbils don't fight over what the other one has. It is 100% advised that if you notice any sort of issues arising with your gerbils and that they start squabbling over items, that you double the amount of items in there. So each gerbil would have access to their own wheel and each gerbil would have access to their own water bottle, so that there wouldn't be any fights over who gets to use what at what time. So it's true that gerbils sort of box or play fight, and it can definitely be difficult sometimes to distinguish between what is play fighting and what is actual full-on bloodbath fighting. If you notice one gerbil chasing the other gerbil all over the tank, the other gerbil trying to desperately get away or hide, or if you hear a ton of squeaking, or if you notice one gerbil being overly dominant, you should separate your gerbils right away, as that is a sign of aggression and not a normal play behavior. An aggressive gerbil is sometimes hard to spot, but they basically come off as a bit of a bully. If your submissive gerbil is trying to run in the wheel or get a drink of water or chew on a certain toy or even just hang out in a certain spot, and your other gerbil is constantly lasered in, focused on them and always interrupting what they're doing, it can definitely cause a problem. A gerbil that is noticeably unprovoked but very reactive is also something to look out for. From what I've researched, there's really no safe age zone of where your risk of having a declan with your gerbils is lower, but it has been noted by many owners that gerbils seem to chill out a bit more over the 2-year mark. Again, this is by no means implying that after 2 years of age your gerbils are in the clear. Please understand that this is always a risk with gerbil pairs. One common factor, other than not having enough resources, and one that many people may not be aware of, is doing too much too fast with your gerbils. For example, if you've had a pair of gerbils living in a 10-gallon aquarium for the past 3 years and you suddenly upgrade them to a 40 or 50-gallon aquarium, the upgrade slow rule still applies. Gerbils are super territorial by nature, and just because they are fine and everything is coherent while they are in a smaller tank does not mean that gerbils will have the same outlook once they are in a new, larger space. If you have gerbils like me, you might have noticed that they like to slide their bellies over different items or spots in their tank, and this is them marking their space. When you are upgrading your gerbils from a smaller home to a larger home, provide your gerbils with a little bit at a time and monitor them for any behavior changes. If their behavior does end up getting negative, or if they start to squabble over certain items, then just start removing items. Gerbils that are a stable pair and upgraded slowly over time will just go about their business like nothing has even changed in their life. If you notice any sort of aggression, dominance, or bullying in your gerbil clan, assess the situation. Are they fighting over a specific item or space? Is one gerbil fearful or scared of the other gerbil? It isn't always too late, and being able to recognize these signs of a stressful D-clan in your gerbils could lead to you saving a gerbil's life. If you notice that your gerbils are in the almighty feared quote-unquote death ball, this is essentially when they entangle aggressively in a ball, fighting and trying to murder each other. If possible, put on a pair of gloves or grab a t-shirt or a towel or whatever is close by to you so that you can help separate them. Using your bare hands can result in some pretty nasty wounds, but in an emergency situation like that, it is more important to just act quickly. Having that spare tank that I always mention in my videos would also come in quite handy in this situation. I recommend separating the gerbils for a full 24 hours so that you can assess both the aggressor and the victim. And if you notice any sort of injuries on your gerbil, it should be your first priority to take that said gerbil to the vet. In cases where you are able to successfully separate your gerbils without any major injuries, it's up to you to decide if you want to attempt to try a split tank and put them back together, or if you want to try to bond them each to new gerbils, or depending on their age, if you would rather have them live out the rest of their lives alone. Gerbils are very social, so a long lifetime of loneliness like that would do a lot of harm to them. If you do have an older gerbil, it may not be worth it for them or for you, especially if you don't plan on owning gerbils again after your remaining gerbils pass. Because you can get stuck in a bit of a cycle where you always have to then replace gerbils or be prepared in case they do declan or if one dies before the other one. So it's really easy to get stuck in an endless cycle of gerbil owning, so it's really up to you to make a judgment call on that. The last issue that I would like to address today in regard to declanning is owning a home with multiple compartments. So having multiple compartments in your space can lead your gerbils to separate and instead start to claim their own area and space. This is not always the case, but most definitely a huge risk. Having a divider in your tank is fine, so I do want to stress the difference between just a regular like bendy bridge divider and like a full-on divided off sectioned area. Having a divider or something that allows you to section off your tank that your gerbils are still able to go in and out of underneath or over top of is super safe and totally encouraged. Having a tall wall to the top of your tank with only one entrance or exit way should be avoided. If there is only one way in and out of a certain area, another gerbil can block this and it will cause a huge rift. I've seen many photos and read many posts and articles online about gerbil declanning, and it seems that when multiple compartments are used, it ups the risk factor significantly of your gerbils having a fight. At the end of the day, you can do all the research you want on gerbil behavior, do everything right, and it sometimes just won't be enough. One day your gerbils will be snuggling and happily enjoying being the best buddies. The next, it's a full-on bloodbath and they no longer want to be tank mates anymore. This is part of the dark side of owning gerbils, and something I believe every gerbil owner should be made aware of and have some sort of knowledge on before you begin owning gerbils. You should be able to tell the difference between aggressive or play behavior, and if you really are unsure, rely on your gut feeling. Sometimes it's better to step in prematurely than to allow the hierarchy to play out into a situation you know won't end well for your gerbils. Your gerbils will work out who the alpha or dominant gerbil is on their own. The problems arise when the alpha gerbil begins to be overtly dominant or when the submissive gerbil doesn't want to take it anymore. Gerbils are great pets, and despite the risk, I still enjoy owning and taking care of them. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, make sure you like and subscribe so that you never miss a video. Thank you. Bye.